Hey y'all, my name is Ann Wyatt. I started my career in workforce development with the state of Kentucky in 2010. That experience ignited a deep passion for manufacturing within me. I started this show hoping to raise more awareness around the bright outlook manufacturing careers have. Join me as I sit down with some of the manufacturing industry's most successful changemakers and learn how they're partnering people with technology. It's time to give people more meaningful work. This is Workforce 4.0. Welcome back to another episode of Workforce 4.0. This is your host, Ann Wyatt. I am here today with Molly Lenty from Vessel. Molly is going to share with us some very great information and insights on the world of workforce development for local area employers, as well as how they can leverage labor market information. I'm super stoked about this conversation because I'm an absolute nerd on data like this. So it's great to have you, Molly. I appreciate you being here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Anne. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. With your work at Vessel, I know you're partnering a lot with local area employers in different parts of the country, but in your own words, could you give us a brief introduction and a little bit more about what you all are doing?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Yeah, so I serve in the role of Chief Operating Officer at Vessel. We are a software company that is focused on helping manufacturers. And with everything we're seeing, especially at the federal level, and need to look at new resources for onshoring or nearshoring our resources, the work that we're doing in manufacturing through the expertise of consultants that are working directly with those manufacturers has provided us the opportunity to look into workforce needs. We know that that is one of the key topics as we're talking to consultants and these experts across the country that are helping their local manufacturers and their local supply chain. Workforce and upskilling is one of those main topics that continues to surface.
Absolutely. Of course, I don't know if you've seen the new report that came out a couple of months ago by Deloitte, but they're now saying, so we're now looking beyond 2030 because for the longest time we've looked at the workforce data up to 2030 and what the predictions are between 2.1 and 3 million, something like that, openings in the manufacturing workforce. And now when we're getting into 2030 and beyond, it looks like that number is due to increase by 1 million or so. I'm not sure if you've seen that.
I have not seen that latest report, but that does not surprise me. I think I just saw something recently that as of last year we had 600,000 jobs that were unfilled in manufacturing. So, you add that to the workforce cliff and aging workforce or, needing our workforce to be upskilled to match the current trends. That number just keeps growing in the wrong direction year over year. We're just compounding those numbers.
Yeah. So workforce is definitely a major topic among the manufacturing community and industry. And I think everybody is just kind of either doing what they can or still trying to navigate those challenges. But I'm hoping that some of the information that you're going to share today with us is going to be very helpful in leveraging how we're bridging the gaps in training and what we're doing with other partners in industry and really how we're collaborating to build more efficient pipelines and networks with each other. So I'm super stoked about that. But, Molly, I love a good karaoke night. I don't know if you know that about me. Do you know that about me?
No, that did not. When we chatted a few weeks ago, that did not come up.
It did not come up. But, we did talk a little bit more about the manufacturing renaissance and the whole movement that our friend Drew Crow is making, and he is absolutely killing it. But Drew and I have been karaoke.
You have.
But we have, yes.
I'm
So
gonna have to
we
ask him
would
about
love
that.
it. Well, we would love it if you would join us sometime on one of these karaoke adventures.
You know what? Once you hear me karaoke, you may not invite me back, but I'll tell you, if you and Drew were to ask me to go to a karaoke night, I would absolutely say yes. That would be a blast.
Awesome. We would love that. So in preparation for this, I've got to know what's going to be your karaoke song that you're going to sing.
This might be one of the most requested karaoke songs, but I'd have to go with Joker by Steve Miller Band. That's
Oh,
just
that's such a good one.
it's a fun one. Everybody gets involved. Either that or some, old school 90s rap.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Some Wonderwall.
Yeah. You might only get one song out of me though, but yeah, Steve Miller Band or 90s rap would probably be it.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. Well, yeah, Steve Miller Band. I don't think I've ever had anybody say that. So I love that. I love the Steve. And who doesn't though? If anyone out there that is listening to this episode does not like Steve Miller Band, we demand to know who you are. Please leave your information in the comments for us to further this conversation. I doubt we're gonna get any replies. So that's awesome. Karaoke is really one of those questions that I ask to kind of break the ice, but also to kind of build that connection across the Workforce 4.0 community. Obviously, if you've ever been on the show, if you're an alumni of the show, that's the first question of the podcast. But what you're doing at Vessel is also really instrumental in building community. And that's really what we're here to focus on today. And I've got to know with what you're working on with throughout these different areas of the country, really, how you're bringing confidence back to hiring companies, and how are you helping them with building confidence and engaging in the current workforce?
Great question. Vessel originally did consulting into manufacturers. They did a lot of go-to-market work and additional supports with, if you're familiar with the MEP National Network, partnering with local MEP centers, primarily in the Northwest. And through the pandemic and the learnings and, really understanding a lot of the challenges within supply chain, our CEO, our founder, Derek Ellis, had a prior career in software, and looking at what was really needed, we needed to automate. We needed to find a way to bring this expertise closer to the manufacturers. And so he set forth in creating a company that we are now. We have our main product is a smart assessment platform. And it was built with the intended use of consultants or account managers within MEP centers, as well as now has extended into manufacturing associations and private consultants that are also working with manufacturers or similar industries. And, it all starts with the ability to really understand the need of a manufacturer. And so we have created a number of assessments and survey tools that experts, that account managers can use as they're working with manufacturers in their state. The general business health assessment does an overview of an understanding of how a manufacturer is currently performing. So it addresses and surfaces their greatest assets, what's going really, really well for that manufacturer, as well as surfaces areas of opportunity, whether it's automation, whether it's workforce, where they're needing to either recruit or retain a skilled workforce, or even create those pathways within their local institutions of higher education. So we start with an assessment, and an account manager would deliver that to a specific manufacturer. Once those smart recommendations are surfaced on the back end and connect to the various resources that they would have at their fingertips, the account manager then is able to really dig in and create a plan for that manufacturer. We are now working in 7 states across the US, embedded typically within either their university system, it might be their state government, or a private organization that is delivering this level of expertise direct to those manufacturers.
Interesting. Yeah. And you bring up the MEP network, and I'm not sure if you're connected with Mike Payne in Oklahoma, but he is a major supporter of the MEP there in Tulsa. And of course, MEP is having a really hard time right now, unfortunately. What are your just really quick thoughts on and takeaways on the MEP? Is there anything that we can do to support their efforts that you know of?
Yeah. And we're not connected to Oklahoma yet, but I'd love to work with Mike Payne. So just a little plug there. We do work with a number of states, from either from the West Coast all the way to the East Coast. There is a lot of transition within the MEP national network with, a lot of the changes that are happening at the federal level. But we know that what manufacturers need the most is the expertise that resides within the walls of an MEP center. It's the account managers. Typically, they are engineers. So they've worked directly for a manufacturing company, and they are there to deliver expertise. So when we think about this transition that could take place across the MEP national network, hopefully not, but as things are still kind of moving around and more information is surfacing, we know that regardless, those experts are the ones that within MEP centers that can deliver that value. You know, they walk the manufacturing floors. They meet with the leaders within manufacturing companies. They understand the pain points and they know the resources that manufacturers need in order to truly become resilient and for us to be able to meet our goals as a country for reshoring and onshoring manufacturing. They're the ones that are on the ground, they're boots
Right.
on the ground and the expertise. So we really are just continuing to partner with our current MEP centers that we're working with, as well as wrapping our arms around the entire network. And however we can help, you know, our tool is built as a investment in what the expertise that they're delivering to their local manufacturers.
Absolutely. And with all of the conversation circulating around reshoring and nearshoring, the purpose and the need for the MEP has never been more
Exactly.
incremental, I don't think.
I was just going to say the timing of being able to automate their expertise for us at Vessel. It's just a really, really important time in manufacturing in this country. And yeah,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. And not every state has an MEP. So, like in Alabama, I don't think we have an MEP. I think we have Manufacturer Alabama, which is essentially our nonprofit for that. And so it's just very state by state dependent, it seems. But if
yeah,
you
there's
do
a
have
lot
an
of
MEP,
nuances within the MEP national network and the way that an MEP center resides within their state. Some are nonprofits, some might be embedded within their state Department of Commerce or a similar office. Some may be embedded within a university system. So most states have an MEP center, but they're typically called something else, which makes it a little bit, difficult to navigate. But they are all available if you search, MEP by state. You can Google them and find your local MEP center.
excellent. Well, thank you for that for our listeners for sure out there. So I think it's very interesting the work that you're doing at Vessel because you are leveraging a lot of data that I think employers really need in order to develop stronger workforce initiatives. For example, when I was recruiting at the state of Kentucky and I was working with state economic development and, cabinet members and that kind of thing, one of the tools that we would essentially use would be to do a labor market information profile on demographics of the workforce. And we would submit that as a report. And that helped to leverage the local area workforce, economy, training, all those aspects that you'd want to look at when you're doing site selection. And that's, and for those listening today, this is a very high level conversation, but site selection, and hopefully Molly is going to share some more information in a more palatable way. But site selection is essentially right when you have a company that is interested in onshoring, nearshoring, or putting a greenfield site in a local area. And then they go through the process of site selection. Okay, like where are we going to build it? What's the best climate for the skills that we're going to need to deploy for that product creation, that kind of thing. But really getting a good grasp on something called labor market information is very important. But Molly, I don't know if you could help me out here and just kind of explain to everyone listening in today what labor market information is and maybe what your top 3 tips are for employers that are considering onshoring, nearshoring, or any type of site selection in their process right now.
Sure. I think that there's a lot of different entry points in this conversation, and I absolutely love talking about labor market and workforce. And especially as we're thinking about the health of our country and health of manufacturing, we know that we need to have a good understanding of what our current workforce looks like in each of our, independent states, but also a good understanding of those skills that are needed, not just today, but also for tomorrow. And there will be an increasing need, especially in manufacturing, that we've got a skilled workforce. So what does that mean? That means that there are employees that have been upskilled or trained in a variety of the current technologies that are needed within manufacturing, as well as the burgeoning technologies. So, with a workforce and the workforce cliff that the country is facing, we know that manufacturers are looking more towards resources like automation. How can they incorporate AI, automation, all of those new technologies into their own operations? It's never going to replace the need for an employee, for an actual, physical human that's there, but it's going to need
Right.
these people that are trained on those pieces of technology, onto the automative tools that are being introduced onto a manufacturing floor. The ability for a consultant, like one that's embedded in an MEP center or within their local manufacturing association, or maybe even a private consultant, the ability for them to survey and assess manufacturers within a geographic area, to have that true data to understand what their current needs are, as well as the future of their workforce. That data can be collected through our platform and analyzed for the local leaders to work with the partners that include, like you mentioned, it could be an economic development agency, to take a look across their supply chain and say, you know what, we really need this type of packaging facility. We need you to go out
Right.
and recruit this type of facility here, but we're also going to need to automate our own manufacturing operations in these areas and be able to take that data to not just the economic development agency, but also to their partners within their local higher education system, to ensure that those pathways are starting to be cultivated. For an institution of higher ed to create a new pathway, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of thought, it takes a lot of partnership, but an understanding that if a manufacturing company that is needing to be recruited to a local area is also going to need this number of employees that are skilled, getting ahead of that and being able to partner to ensure that those pathways and those trainings are taking place simultaneously.
That is correct. Yes. Thank you. Yes. And I think like a really good example that we could probably talk about now is like the GM plant, we'll say in Spring Hill, Tennessee. So there was an existing. So this is a nearshoring event. So this isn't a greenfield site. This plant is existing and was existing, and then when they moved all of that overseas. Now they are investing back into the plant. They are going to retool the plant, meaning that they're going to put in new machinery and assembly lines and all that kind of thing. But when you have a capital investment like that is huge. But the thing is, that plant cannot carry its own, the whole ecosystem. So what will happen as a result of that plant reshoring back and reclaiming that space in Spring Hill, Tennessee, is that you're going to inevitably need things like what you're saying, like maybe they need a packaging solution, or maybe they need a parts solution that they cannot manufacture in-house. And then you're going to have different suppliers that will pop up to serve as an OEM tier one supplier to that plant and feed that plant. And that's something I don't think we talk more enough about, is how the business at large of manufacturing actually works. So this is a great opportunity for Tennessee, in my humble opinion, Molly, to maybe reach out to you all and start thinking about, okay, well, what skills are we going to need based on what GM is going to come back and tell us that they need to supply this plant.
There's also an unintended consequence when you have a large manufacturer that's maybe also new, and the type of manufacturing that they're providing. When you bring a new manufacturer into a local geography, there's a ripple effect. And there's only so
Yep.
much workforce that's available. And so really having a good understanding of where are they going to be pulling these potential employees from? How can that possibly negatively impact smaller manufacturers that could be losing their
Yep.
workforce? So really
Yep.
thinking about it from a homogeneous ecosystem and taking a look at how are we not only solving for this one need with this new manufacturer coming into this local supply chain, but how are we truly understanding, assessing the ripple effect and the larger ecosystem that will need to be solved for as well. And it's a complex issue. And I know that it's one that's going to continue to happen, especially as we make some forward momentum in reshoring and nearshoring manufacturing that is so critically needed. How are we going to understand those deficits in workforce, current needs, as well as future needs? And what are we doing collectively in order to address that? And that's where our smart assessment platform, especially if it's being used in a state that there is a collaborative kind of hub and spoke model in place. And we see a few of those kind of popping up, conversations across the country where they realize that access to this data, which really is an understanding of what our local manufacturers might need in that area, but also the broader supply chain. So being able to collaboratively work together with economic development, MEP centers, manufacturing associations, institutions of higher ed,
Mhm.
there's a whole cottage industry around manufacturing.
Yes, definitely. And I've definitely been in those situations where, we have done that. We did that in Kentucky. I mean, yes, that is
Yeah.
definitely what we did. But I mean, it was great. I mean, the end result was great. And, you don't ever not want to do that because you feel like there's going to be a bottleneck in the workforce pipeline, the talent pipeline. But I do think it is critical to get everyone on the same page and really work with your education providers in figuring out a training pathway and how are we going to train the new plant, so to speak, the new workforce, so to speak, and then also replace the training pipeline that will be pulled from existing employers. It's a balance, and it does become very politically very quickly, Molly. Very quickly it becomes very political.
Well, I mean,
Well,
the truth is
that's
there's only so many resources to go around, right? And it's we're the labor force in each geography, it's a competition. How are
it
they going
is.
to attract and retain the talent that they need? One of our partners that we work with, it's an MEP center in Florida, Florida Makes. We've helped them create their employer of choice program that they have administered into their local manufacturing community statewide. And it's an opportunity for those employers to have a better understanding of how they're performing to industry level benchmarks around recruiting and retention. So it's a really great program that they've just rolled out this year, and we're starting to see a lot of the data coming in on that. But Marcelo at Florida Makes has overseen this program rollout, and it's providing them a lot of insights into what manufacturers are really needing from a workforce perspective. How are they, if they're an employer of choice, then we know that they've met these various metrics in the way that they are currently recruiting and retaining their employees, which in a labor force like this, where, we just talked about it being so competitive, they're going to need those insights and they're going to need to ensure that they are remaining competitive, within other industries.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I love that you've rolled out this program. I know that on our call previously you were talking some about this and the benchmarking that is available for the industry sectors. Could you tell us a little bit more about that model and how that works and how that is beneficial for local area companies? Well, not even local, like in local within your state. I know you all don't just work exclusively in one state, but how that helps them bridge the talent gap and also develop a pathway forward to overcome any training gaps there.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought this up because it's not just by individual state. Every state across the country is running into the same issues from a workforce deficit across all industries. We're talking about workforce as it pertains to
Mm-hmm.
manufacturing, but we know that there are, on-demand careers in each state. And there are, workforce development councils that are very focused on providing resources to those most in-demand careers that are needed. Healthcare being a big one here in Idaho. that, we've got a huge shortage of healthcare workers. But we also have a shortage of workers that are helping to ensure that our local supply chain continues on. So we've got
That's correct. Yeah.
two chips expansions, huge chips expansions that are taking place just out here in Boise and the surrounding area. So, there are major recruiting efforts right now to ensure that we can fill that pipeline of workers that are needed. And I think there's great work that's taking place across the country. We talked about Drew Crow earlier, and the manufacturing
Yes.
renaissance and the work that he's doing to shed light on the opportunities that reside within working in manufacturing. And I think, some of these old ideas around what a career would look like in manufacturing, he's doing a good job to dispel those old beliefs and, get in front of unapproached audiences, whether they're youth or adults that might be looking for a career change, any number of different audiences, just really thinking creatively around how are we going to recruit new workforce? How are we going to introduce them to all of the different careers that reside within manufacturing? Because there's a lot of really cool stuff that people get to do when they're working at a manufacturer. They're using technology in new ways than we've ever seen before. So I think introducing youth to careers in manufacturing is critically important and getting them excited. These are real working wage jobs. These are jobs that pay really well and allow people to bring in their own creativity and create something. Not a lot of people get to go to work and every single day say that they've created something, especially when you think
That's right.
about being able to create something that helps fuel our country. It's huge.
That's right. It is huge. It is huge. And we don't talk about that enough, but Drew's doing such a great job. I mean, and I've been honored to work with Drew in the past, and he's obviously a very good friend of mine. And he is doing such a great job getting out there, getting the word out, like really talking about it, creating conversation about it, and being relentless. And it's great to see. I love watching Drew's content. So, but you're right. I mean, we have to get everybody excited. We have to really break it down to them and be like, look, you're not just going in and punching a button anymore. That's, that future manufacturing, that's dead and gone. I think you're going to have more meaningful work. I think you're going to have more meaningful careers, and you're going to be part of something so much bigger. And it's coming. And I know Drew is definitely leading the charge on that.
Well, I think you used a really important word, relentless, right? The work that we need to do to help understand the needs of our manufacturers and ensure that we have those real data insights that can be brought to lawmakers in states that fund programs, as well as to help inform those career pathways that we need to partner with our institutions of higher ed. We need that to be relentless about telling the story around we've got access to technology that can help automate this intelligence, help automate the process of really understanding what manufacturers need, as well as being able to visualize the impacts of that across a full ecosystem. And that's where we get so excited when we are partnering with a state who is wanting to collaborate, who's wanting to bring all of those people to the table, where they can really create an informed ecosystem to best understand the needs of their local manufacturers, the needs of their local supply chain and state economy, so that they can get ahead of these, workforce challenges.
Definitely. Molly, I love that so much. I think that's such a powerful note to end on. If you're out there listening, be relentless. That's what we need to do for the future of work, for sure.
It's the American way. I mean, if you really think about it.
It is. Yeah, it is.
Which is more important now than ever before. And, we're so excited about all of the efforts that are taking place to reshore, nearshore. So important. I think one thing through the pandemic was just bringing supply chain to the dinner table conversation. People understand the challenges better than they ever did before. Such an important time in manufacturing in this country. And for the consultants, the experts that really know how to help their local manufacturers, like those that reside within MEP centers, they're the ones that are so critically important to ensuring that we set ourselves up for success.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. And I do, yeah, supply chain was huge. I mean, this is really the pandemic broke our supply chain in a way, but it also did a lot more for us.
There's always, a little bit of chaos, right? Shakes things up a little bit.
Yep. Exactly. I love that. Well, Molly, for everyone out there listening today, if they want to learn more about the work that you're doing through Vessel, or if they want to connect with you, what is a good point of contact for you?
Yeah, best way to reach me, my email's pretty easy. It's Molly, MOLLY, at vesselscale.com. I'm active on LinkedIn. You can find me there. And we absolutely love showing off our product and learning more about the needs within local communities and the needs within their local manufacturers. So please reach out. I'd love to have a conversation. I'd love to show you the product and the software that we've built that helps automate expertise.
I love that. Oh, so much, Molly. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and sharing this. It's been such a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. I think everyone else will too when they hear it. If you're out there listening today, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Workforce 4.0, and be sure to connect with Molly.
Thanks, Ann. Appreciate you having me on today.
All right. Well, thank you, Molly. I appreciate it as well. And for everyone else, we will see you next week.